we will begin our public hearing for the proposed 2020 budget. What we'll do is go over the proposed budget, talk about a few of the highlights, and then we'll open it up for public commentary. And then the Board of Commissioners will have our discussion about it. And then if we have any more time after that, we'll open it up to some more public commentary. And then we have this on the agenda later on for hopefully if we're ready to do that, to vote. So just to go over some of the highlights of the budget, the grand total revenues that we're proposing, total budget is $28,564,665. But for most of our discussion, we'll be talking about the general fund expenditures, which is really the heart of the budget. So those expenditures as proposed out there are $19,937,225. Some of the highlights, I guess you could call that, for the 2020 proposed budget. We can kind of note those overall. And we have a proposal that's on the table here for the Sheriff Department, which includes a detention center, which includes a 6% salary increase, salary or wage increase. We have we've increased the proposed budget for the risk management, which is the health insurance and the liability insurance, from $1,620,000 this year to a proposal of $1,850,000. That's a $230,000 increase. The Board of Elections, because there will be a number of elections next year, starting with the primary and then having the November presidential election, which always requires additional people. That budget has been increased from $208,000 to $328,000, $120,000 increase. The other proposed change on here, or recommendation, was to increase the fire service budget from $613,000 to $788,000, which would be the numbers that we would project to hire 6 full-time firefighters for the county. And this would enable us to have 24/7 paid firefighters that would respond to any fire in the county. If you look at some other things, and I'm going to point this out, just a few other highlights, the tax assessors, and I'm going to give them a shout out because a couple of years ago the proposed budget was close to $1.2 million. That was what was proposed. Now the budget they're operating on this year is $658,000. Now you would have to throw maybe another $100,000 in there for health insurance to compare apples to apples. But I want to commend them. I believe having 5 board members gives the additional oversight of that department, and that's a very significant change. And this year, they're getting the job done. We're out of the consent decree, and they're operating so far this year at 6% under the budget year to date. So I want to thank the tax assessors and the board for making that commitment and giving the taxpayers of the county some real relief and bottom line savings and getting the job done. So I think that has to be pointed out. Some other areas that are included or could change this. We have plans to move the public defender's office from the rental space that they have over here across the railroad tracks into the old #1 fire station next door. We'll need to have some renovation work done over there to accommodate that, but by moving them there, we will save $25,000 a year in rent alone. And that's an absolute no-brainer to do that. And that money could be used as initially if we have to do some work over there. We've got options to do that. a very economical labor cost, and as time goes on, that savings will add up. One of the other things in the 911 budget was to add a part-time dispatcher for peak time, so that's a little bit of a, would you say a half a person, Patrick?
Yeah, basically.
To do that, but that certainly was needed, and we'll propose that for the commissioners. And overall, which is included in here, we're proposing for the county employees a 2% wage increase, which we've been able to do thanks to the citizens for the last few years. So if you want to really point out the areas of where the increase, and the increase was from the 2019 budget, general fund expenditures this year was $19,039,000. And this year, the proposal is to go $19,937,000 in the general fund expenditures. That is about $500,000 less than the proposed budget that was turned in initially by all the department heads and elected officials. So that initial request was asking for about a 7.5% increase in the budget, and we've been able to pare that down to a little under $500,000, which accounts for about I believe that's about a 4.7 increase in the general fund expenditures from 2019 to 2020. And if you want to look at the health and liability insurance, the Sheriff Detention Center increase, the 6 full-time firefighters, the increase for the Board of Elections, and the 2% overall wage increase for the other county employees, that amounts to about 95% of the proposed increase for 2020. At this time, if some of the public commentary, if someone would like to speak, we'll welcome you to come up front. Who would like to speak? We'll give you another opportunity if we have time before we start our regular meeting. And of course, we have public commentary at at our regular agenda, which will start at 5:15. So you'll have, if you need more time to absorb this, you'll have a little more time to discuss this or come up with a question. Commissioners have to go.
Excuse me, I've been holding my hand up to speak.
I'm sorry, Mr. Webb, I didn't see you. You're welcome to come up.
I'm Joe Webb. I live in the Dial area of the county, and I have purposely not been coming to commissioners meetings for the last 3 months because, quite frankly, there's too little known by the public and the post commissioners to truly do business. As I look at the budget and the opening of our budget hearings, I'll make the same request I've made in years past, which is that you provide the public and yourselves with year-to-year comparisons. It's very nice to be read to numbers I can fill in and then see a comparison, but it's sort of a ridiculous thing that we don't have this sort of information available to everyone. Looking at the budget and what we've been given, as traditionally we are breaking the local legislation and we're not doing a capital budget, which is required by local legislation, and we have no chairman's guidance and narrative, which is also required by the local legislation. That said, those are annual audit exceptions, which we've now ignored for at least 10 years. So y'all aren't doing anything differently than we've done it before. There's not enough information. When I basically said I wasn't coming back in August, I wrote you a letter saying there's too little known and asking some of the big questions. Most of these actually end up being budget questions for 2020. What is the cost of our build out of our new admin building? What department will move when? What percent of the building would be occupied? What are the operating costs? It looks like we're still putting things backwards across the street. So again, there is no plan for that. That was a question I asked back on August 13th. Basically, what's the plan for the 2016 splosh for parking? What is the plan for the recreational facility? In looking at risk management, what is your estimate for the last 6 months of this year? And where are we going to hit at the end of this year? Again, this should be hard numbers that we're looking at in the budget. Again, we made a decision to self-insure. That's what this risk management's about. Have we actually gone back, and I suggest we project the premium increase in the future and look back at 2017, 18, and 19. What is the 3-year cost of this program, and what are our future liabilities? We're in a serious health risk area of the country. We have higher cancer here and a few other things, and basically self-insured may not be the way to go financially. We got surprised last year when we found out a single employee in the tax assessors was making over $50,000. And we were very upset about it. We basically terminated the job and hired in cheaper, which again, I think is appropriate. Are we on a 3-minute?
Yeah, we'll go with
here?
3 minutes, Mr. Webb. You'll have another opportunity here to speak and continue. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else at this time? Commissioners, you need some time to look over some of this. We have a lot of information to filter through, and certainly if we have any questions, we could discuss them here. It gives us more opportunity to do that now, and then hopefully when we have this on the agenda later on this evening, we'll be in a better position to make a decision.
Mr. Chairman, a minute ago, you was talking about the 95% of the proposed increase. I got some of that. Would you mind just reviewing that one more time for me?
Sure. The main items, Commissioner, was the increase in the risk management, which is the health and liability insurance for the county.
Right. Currently
$1,620,000, and we're proposing $1,850,000, which would be $230,000 the increase. And then the Board of Elections, the current budget $208,000, and that has been increased to $328,000 for next year, about $120,000 because of the big election next year. Then we had the sheriff and the jail combined. That was $117,000. I believe that was the amount. I didn't bring my calculator with me here. That's the amount I gave the 117 would have been primarily just for salaries. So I'll back up from that. That's about $150,000, I believe, in the total budget increase for the sheriff and the jail.
What about the extra firemen?
I'm sorry.
What about the extra?
Yeah, that was that increased from 613 to 788. That's 175,000 for that. And then if you look at giving the overall county 2% increase, that adds close to $200,000 overall to the total budget. And those were the primary items that were the total amount of increase.
And our total shortfall was $678,616, right? General fund.
I'll tell you in a second. 678, 616.
Yeah.
That's the shortage of the expenditures versus the revenues that are anticipated.
Right.
Right. Now, when you look at that, if you look at the general fund cash balance in the bank, it's approximately, and this is why it's kind of hard to predict that, but the cash balance in the general fund account is approximately $1 million higher than it was last year. That's cash we got in the bank, which is what that would have to, where that would come from. And then if you looked at the unassigned fund balance that the county has, and this is per the audit, the fund balance we have is 6.3 months, and that is compared to the ACCG standard of 2 months. So, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be concerned that we're dipping into general fund, but I think we're quite a ways away from having to look at that from any kind of immediate concern.
Okay.
So the total fund balance right now is what in the general fund?
The total general fund balance, you talk about what's in the bank, or I couldn't tell you. off the
Yeah,
top of my
I mean,
head. I know it's approximately $1 million more this year than what it was last year. I think it's kind of hard to separate that out, just off the top of my head.
Well, it says here 17 million, almost 18. Is that right, Robin?
What are you talking about?
Mr. Johnson asked what was the general fund balance was of this date.
As of this date?
Right.
I don't have
And
that
this time-
exact number, but
I'm looking for
now, as of the
2009.
audit, the 2018 audit that he was talking about, it was about 10 mil.
Okay.
In other words, you don't know what the fund balance is.
Not the
The
exact
last week.
number.
So you're saying that the fund balance is around 10 million and the approximated fund balance will be around 1,174,000 for next year?
No, he's talking about two different things. Fund balance and cash is different. Fund balance, if I was to approximate, since we're running about 1% under budget, you would have to take whatever the shortfall we were talking about this year, and if you do 1%, difference, then that would come off of the fund balance for this year. Like say if we were anticipating, I don't remember what my number was, we anticipated fund balance to be a shortfall of last year, wasn't it 500,000? I can't remember. But then, so that means if we have 10 million, then we'll have 9,500,000 this year. It'll just depend on when all the audit entries are done, that we'll know.
Yeah, please hold your questions till we have through the discussion. You'll get an opportunity.
Well, I was
to speak
confused.
again.
Someone else in the audience asked a question and you allowed it.
So you don't have an approximate fund balance number?
I just went over that.
No,
If
I know
we're-
you did, and I'm gonna go over this one more time. It's kinda hard for me to make a decision on where we're gonna be next year when you don't have that number here for us to all look.
Well, if you had asked me for it before the meeting, I would have been glad to have given you a little bit more accurate number.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, if I remember what the shortfall was, for this year, I can't remember what that number was, but say it was 500,000, we're running about 1% under budget. So 1% of that is 50,000, say. So our fund balance by the end of the year will be the 10 million less approximately the 500,000.
Right. That would be very good information though, sitting here
But
making
that's fund
decisions for
balance.
next year's budget. That would be very good information for us all to have.
But you gotta realize fund balance and cash balance are two separate things. Because some of the fund balance is restricted and you can't use it just for general fund expenditures.
I'm just gonna say, I've been here 7 years. I went through 7 budgets. Every year we're making this decision. I like having that number to know exactly where we're gonna be. And I know I don't realize a lot of things, so say you, but I do realize a whole lot of things. And I need the fund balance number. That would be a very good number to have right here when we're all sitting here proposing all these numbers. That'd be a very good number to have. But I guess we can, other people can make a decision without having that number. If that be the case, so be it.
Robin, if you would go over that one more time, maybe I can catch a little bit more of it too and help Mr. Johnson. We can both figure it out a little bit better, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind a bit.
Thank you.
The fund balance for 2018 was about $10 million.
Okay.
I am predicting right now, you know, from my budget presentation, will be about 1% under budget. If I remember correctly, our shortfall for 2019, I don't have that number with me, but I think it was around 500,000. I'm not 100%. And if it was that exact number, then you would approximately say that since we're shortfalling 500,000, you would take the 500,000 off the 10 million.
Okay.
And that would be
Present,
your fund balance presently, yes.
fund balance, not cash balance.
Yeah, cash balance is different.
Right. We'll take
You
five.
really determine fund balance unless the auditors have come through and split all that out.
I mean, like I said, all I can do is that part until they come through and do any kind of adjustments that they do. Because they always, as you know, have journal adjustments every year.
So with that being said, it looks like we're gonna be close to like 9,500,000, right?
If we stay on track.
Right.
The hard thing for all of us commissioners to do, to know if we're staying on track, is to know where that number is, when we're making these decisions. To know exactly what that number is. Otherwise, the only person that's gonna know if we're on track is the CFO of the county.
Robin, that being said, it's like we've got, the last 2 years, we've had shortfalls. More this year than we had last year, correct? At 500,000?
At this point, but
Yeah.
it may not be quite that much when it's said and done and everything's adjusted.
Right.
And all the transfers are made and everything.
So I would assume our general fund is reducing slowly each year, correct?
No, the fund balance is. Now, our cash balance has actually went up a little.
Okay.
Could you go in just a little bit of the difference between the fund balance and the cash balance? That may be a little bit confusing.
Fund balance is gonna have all your activity, whether it's accounts payable, accounts receivable, you know, deposits that may have been made, prepayments. I'm trying to think of everything else. That will all affect your fund balance. That doesn't affect your cash balance until something's either come in or taken out.
So is the fund balance calculated? How often is that calculated? I mean, the auditors do it once a year.
They do it once a year
All right.
to
So
get
the
a
fund
completely
balance is-
accurate number.
Okay,
I mean,
so-
I have like a little financial
Right.
thing, but it's not as accurate
Yeah.
until,
Well, you wouldn't have, I mean, until they get all the tax collections in this year and everything's reported, you wouldn't really have an opportunity to say exactly what that fund balance would be until end of the year.
yeah, well,
So-
not even in the end of the year, because see, you'll have receivables coming in that have to go in, even though you collect them, we have 60 days, basically, January, February, that we receive any kind of deposit. If it's applicable to the prior year, you have to put it back there, and that affects fund balance. And then same thing with payables. You know, we may charge something on December 30th, well, we won't get that until January, but we have to back that up for the prior year in order to make it accurate. That's why a lot of times fund balance and cash balance are never going to be the same. And plus, there's always restricted cash that's in there that you can only use for certain things.
If we're looking at, I think that's about, how many items is that on our expenditure on the general fund? About 40-something items? Is there anything on there particularly that would be on what's proposed that the commission board has concerns or questions on? Okay, Mr. Webb.
Firstly, thank you for reopening public comments. As to what we're just addressing, I think it once again demonstrates that the post-commissioners do not have enough information to make decisions about. That said, what I hear in discussion is a bank account balance. And if the bank account balance is at 10 million, that doesn't mean anything as to what you can spend over budget. Because if you look at that 10 million on January 1st, you're going to make a bond payment of 1.1 million in March or April. That money has to be in the checking account coming from somewhere. So I'm bad on semantics. I got beat up for saying it was a charter, like local legislation. But in business, we would ask, what is the reserve? What is the unallocated surplus? Because the number we're messing with this year, $678,000, other than the Board of Elections, all that increase is going to stay in our budget. And if our surplus is literally only $1 million, we don't seem to know what that surplus number is or reserve. And pardon my semantics if I have the wrong number. But in the published budget, the approximate fund balance was actually left out. There are just dots out there. But if we're going to overspend $678,000 this year and probably $500,000 next year by design, and we don't have revenue allocated against it, then basically we need to know what that number is, and I would suggest we not pass this budget until we do know what that number is, because in certainty, we will run out of money. And it'll be on someone else's watch because there's an election next year. Again, we need more information. We need this board to follow the rules. That said, the chairman made a comment about the tax assessor and complimented them and said part of that solution was the 5-member board giving better oversight. Gentlemen, I would suggest we get to a 5-member board so that the post commissioner can have a discussion with the chairman before a meeting. Right now, legally, the only time y'all can discuss this is right here. It's unfortunate that this information is not published as a matter of fact. It is over at the school board. I don't know why we can't do that at the county. But that's the question, is what is the surplus? What's the extra money that's not allocated? And that should be a very easy answer to make any time of the year, and it shouldn't be waited on until a year after the fact when the auditors, bless their hearts, come in and tell us what we're doing. I was in business. My last job, I had 7 controllers controlling $200 million worth of cash flows and revenues and expenses. I do understand budgets. I am a certified treasurer management. Basically, this is not the way this should be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Yes, sir, Mr. Simons.
Couple of things. This,
Mr. Simons, come up here, please. Right here.
Sure, I thought this was get together, okay. Yeah, I'm Bill Simons. I live on Mineral Bluff Highway. A couple of things I want to know. This risk management, how is that involved with the county employees' insurance?
The risk management? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, the insurance. Are we just paying for the employees' only insurance now and not their dependents?
No. If they have family insurance, they have several options. If the employees they want to pay for family insurance, we cover that. If they have just husband, spouse, or single insurance, still have that.
Okay, they got it, that's good.
Yeah. And that includes in that risk management, not just employees, but the liability insurance for the county. The reason that's changed from a few years ago is each department, before the health insurance was included in their individual budget. We split that out for a couple of reasons. It basically gave us full focus on what our health insurance is, where everybody could see it. You know, ugly or pretty, whatever it is, you could see it. And the other thing, the other reason for that, which is really more important, if you had a small department, let's say, you know, Patrick's department or Ms. Cochran's department, if someone had something that was catastrophic, their insurance would be quite a bit higher in their department, and it could not only impact their budget adversely, but also kind of rubs against HIPAA in that people wouldn't be as protected as they are now with that. So that's part of the reason we moved that over there.
The other question I had was, we had a certificate of deposit on at the United Bank,
Right.
and it should be somewhere around 650,000, maybe 675. Is that still in place, or has that been?
That went up to the fire station, the Windy Ridge Fire Station. That money was used to help pay for that.
So it's not there anymore?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of the risk management, where are we at on that at this time?
As far as,
The number, where are we at
I
now?
believe that's, that would be in the financial report that Ms. Casway is going to give later, but that is, that.
The way we discussed before, 2 million was the stop on it, where they picked up after 2 million.
I don't have that, I'm sorry, that number's just not in here as far as where we are.
We've actually improved this month.
Yeah.
Last month, we were at 105% from budget, and this month, I think it was 102%, if I'm not mistaken. So we're actually improving as the months go by, unless any more claims come up. I would suspect it would be really close to 100%, you just at the budget level.
So the reinsurance is what's kicking in now to bring that down.
Yes.
And I don't have that in here, but I believe that the last time I looked at that, we were.
Yeah, the maximum liability is 2.3 for this year, I believe, and I think we are at, netting the reinsurance that we've already been paid back, I think we're at 1.6. And I don't foresee any huge bills coming in, but again, I don't know the health of everybody, so I'm not sure. That is on the detail of the presentations that I send to you all.
Right, right.
Did you have that number exact, what you was going to present later on, or through October? I didn't see it in what I had here.
Yeah, it should be on the presentation.
Okay. Do you know what that is, Ralph?
I'm thinking it was the, not counting the, the general liability, but I think it was 1.6, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't actually bring my budget papers up this time.
Well, good to know we actually went down last month. And I know it's been a while since we've had the auditors here and everything, but, you know, I don't want anybody to worry. Generally speaking, as a CFO, generally speaking, we're in financially sound standing, correct?
Oh, yes.
That's what I was.
Like I said, that's why I do the monthly presentation, is to kind of show you all and the public, you know, that where we're standing expenditure-wise, how we're doing.
We've been talking about a lot of things, and I think it's easy to get off track and think that we're in bad shape when actually,
No, we're,
We're
you
not.
know, about even to what we predicted.
and we're not talking just to insurance, we're talking about overall.
Overall,
Generally-
yes.
Generally speaking.
Not to compare anything, but like in my company, I have a thing called the number, okay? And at any given moment, I can call Justin Foster and say, what's the number? And what that is, every expenditure, every revenue, this is where we stand as a company. To know if I am sound, not so sound, need to get out of town, okay? I always have that number when I, you know, we usually go over it once a week, just to see progress or regression, whatever. So we don't do that as a county.
I look at the numbers every day, and everything that comes in and what goes out, you know, pretty much every day.
Like you don't have that number, and like, you know, here, you know, it's basically a fund balance.
Well, I look at the revenues and the expenditures every month. And if there's anything flagging, I'll let Mr. Helton know. If there's anything flagging that's way behind or way up, I usually highlight it. And, you know, there hasn't been anything extraordinary, but that's what I would do if anything were to come up. I mean, like if, say the lost and the SPOS revenue, if it started going down, that's, you know, something that everybody needs to know. That's why I think it's great that we do it on the presentation and let everybody see.
But it's not like a number you live with, like, you know.
No.
You'll see, where I'm at, he lives with that number, because he watches over all my money, so.
Yeah.
I can probably call him tonight at midnight, and he's like, oh yeah, it's this. So that's, I mean, and we're much, we do almost double what my company does here budget-wise, and, if it's important for my company, which is half this budget, surely it's important for this county. I just think when we're sitting here, we're having a budget hearing, I think those numbers are very important to have here, so, we can all, and I'm glad we can guess and all, but I hate guessing. You know, like I hate guessing at this insurance number. It's bothered me for 2 years in risk management. You know, I hate not knowing what it's gonna be. Because like right now, it regressed, Mr. Patterson, but next month it could,
Right,
you know,
correct.
and then we're still not gonna know till after the year's over what has really been done, correct?
Correct. I mean, I don't know when the doctors are gonna submit a bill. I mean, there's, you know, there's
Right, I
no,
don't expect it, these unknowns really trouble me, and that's just, and I know all three of us are different. It may not bother Mr. Held, it may not bother Mr. Patterson, it may bother both of them, I don't know, but I know it's, I can't make a decision not knowing that number, because that is how I feel the county is doing versus year to year, or any, or week to week, or month to month.
yeah. Well, the board had decided to do this self-insurance, and I've already talked to the agents, I've already done everything to tell them that we have to have fully insured numbers, at least 3 or 4 quotes, and, you know, for next year, but we can't do anything until then.
Right.
Until open
But
enrollment.
besides the insurance, just the number for the county. And I know I say the number, and that sounds real simple and all, but it's just, I believe everyone here, we all know if we spent every dollar we had, and we knew how much we had in the bank, we all know where we stand. Or I would hope everyone here does.
I mean,
You know where you're
I can
at.
send you a report daily if,
I don't, see,
I mean-
now we're jumping light years away. I don't want to report daily. I'm sitting here in the budget hearing, getting ready to propose $28 million worth of revenues, or 19 million total, general fund expense total. And all I'm asking for is that information. And just to be quite honest with the board, I'm not gonna move forward till I have it. So I can't. It would be
Mr. Johnson,
foolish
you've
not to
had
have it.
this information for quite some time. If you needed
Not
something,
this
I'd be glad to
information, not
do.
this information. I'm asking the CFO of the county where we stand with the fund balance, and you think it's 9.5. I think the CFO should have that number. That's what I think. But I understand you and I aren't on the same page anyway, but all I'm saying, my expectation is to have that number, not an I think. That's how I feel about it. Mr. Patterson's asked me, and you've told him 2 or 3 times what you think. He really needs to know.
I'm slow though, Mr. Johnson.
Have you had that number in the past? I'll look at any of the minutes and see if you've had that number in the past.
You know, now I feel like I'm gonna have to be an attorney. All I want is the number, Miss Gazaway.
And
You
I will
always
get
have
it
a
to
very
you
good
first thing in the
comeback.
morning.
I'm not, well, if I don't have the number, I'm not gonna move forward with this.
If you had asked me for it, I would have had it
The other
for
two
you. I'd have been glad to.
My whole point is, I would think the CFO would know that number, or be able to get it just like that. That's my point, and I'm not gonna say anything.
We have, the revenue sources that come in, you know, SPOS is constant during the year. The hotel motel tax is pretty constant during the year. The one area, the taxes that are paid really don't start coming in until towards the end of the year, correct?
Yeah, November, but that is actually, you gotta remember, that is actually next year's money.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to defer that revenue, because it's not, we get it in November and December, but it's really next year's money.
So what's involved if you're looking for the fund balance? What's involved with producing that on a regular basis, monthly basis? Or, I mean, is it possible to do that and be accurate?
Not be accurate, no. You have too many variables. Because you don't know how much property taxes you're gonna get. You can estimate it, you know, and everything. You can estimate all this stuff that anybody else can do, but it's just an estimate. Again, it's always just an estimate. So it's not gonna be actual.
Could we do an approximated
Mhm.
fund balance?
Oh, yeah.
How accurate would that be, do you think?
I wouldn't, fair to guess, but it should be pretty accurate.
Okay. How much trouble would it be to produce something like that on a regular basis, once a month or?
Yeah, once a month is easy.
I think a good way of doing it would be an assumption, like, you know, when our accounts receivable at the company, we assume everyone's gonna pay, because if they don't pay, we're gonna have to sue them to collect our money. If you don't pay the county, your land is sold. So I think we're safe to make an assumption to keep, and I understand 100 more people next year might not pay their property taxes. I understand that. But at least the county, we have a number that we're looking at. Is our fund balance growing? Is it shrinking? Is it, you know, or what rate is it growing? What rate is it shrinking? And I think we could basically make an assumption as to what we're gonna bring in. And that could be, I don't know anything else to say, but the number that we all look at to see if we're progressing or regressing. I just think a fund balance is very critical to the county's health, knowing where we stand.
If the general fund cash balance in the bank, if you have that, does that resolve a lot of what you're looking for? Because what I do, is look at that on a regular basis, and I try to keep that comparison month to month, you know, year to year, and what time I've been here, and try to see what trend. The same thing I do in my personal stuff. Is that, I mean, if that's something that helps alleviate, that can be easily done, right? I mean, that certainly can be done. I mean, it's just a matter, we've got how many, I feel funny talking about this, we got how many accounts do we have with the bank?
Probably 15.
Yeah, and but the big one, the primary one is, that we'd be looking for, other than the splost accounts, would be the general fund.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Mhm.
And that's easy to get for you. I mean, that can be printed off.
Because without knowing those numbers, like, I don't know how we know when to stop paving roads. You see what I mean? Like in public works, I don't know how Zach would know, hey, we need to stop tarring and graveling because I'm out of money. If we
Because he
don't
gets a
know
budget
numbers.
report every month.
Right.
Could we, would it be all right if she brings that off between now and the next meeting? I mean, you can do that, can't you?
Yeah, I can
Go
go
down and turn off
downstairs.
what that balance is for both commissioners.
Mhm.
And I don't have one as of today, but, you know, look at it regularly. We can do that and have it anytime that you want that.
I mean, I don't want trouble or nothing.
We can do that, that's no problem, that, I'd be glad to. We can have that printed out.
But does every department know where they stand?
I send a budget out to everybody every month. For the most part. There's a couple of them that don't really want it, but most of them, I send out 10 or 15 at least to the major departments every month for them to look at.
Because it looks like to me, if we approve this increase, if the general fund cash balance is $1,174,972, that number's correct?
No, that's the increase from last year. Is it? No, there's over $5 million in the bank,
The,
in the general fund alone.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, what number were you looking at, sir? The one, what was that again? The 1,174?
So you know there's $5 million in the bank.
Mhm. I look at the bank accounts every day.
All right.
I have to check them and make sure that, you know, we have the positive pay system to where, you know, we don't have fraudulent information coming through. That's done on a daily basis.
The 1,174, is that what you were referring to, Commissioner? That was what was requested by all the department heads, and what we're proposing, was we cut close to $500,000 out of that, and it was $678,616 is the shortfall, the shortfall of revenues, anticipated revenues to the expenditures right now. If I'm not mistaken, the first audit we did, the general fund balance was about 6.8 months. And then last year it went down to about 6.3, which still is way above that 2-month standard that ACCG has. But,
Right. But knowing that number, like you just knew that number, that's everything. But if we just go off that, how many months of reserve do we have? I mean, we can see if it's growing, shrinking.
well, I got an idea. You can ask Mr. Webb, then Mr. Webb can ask me.
I'll participate in that.
I was joking, Mr. Webb, I'm sorry.
I'm not.
Okay. We can, any more comments right now? If not, we'll.
Yeah, I
Well,
basically
let's
don't
hold on, Mr. Webb.
understand
We
this.
can open it back up here. What I wanted to do is ask Ms. Gasaway if she would go down. Let's go ahead and, just kind of call a halt to this right now. And then we'll take it up further at the, meeting. But would you go and print that out for all three of us, please? Yeah. we'll do that.
Thank you.
Well, let's go ahead and take a break right now. We'll have our regular meeting start at 5:15. And if you have some more questions, you can ask that. Mr. Patterson, would you lead the invocation, please?
Let us pray. Lord Heavenly Father, we just come to you again, thanking you for the privilege to call upon your name and ask for your wisdom and guidance in this meeting, Lord. We thank you, Lord, for blessing us so much already. And in this season of Thanksgiving, Lord, help us truly to give thanks to you, our Master and our Creator and Lord. Thank you so much for all you do each and every day of our lives. And Lord, we just ask that as we continue this meeting, that your will be done, Lord, and that the activity, the discussions, whatever's done, Lord, be pleasing in your sight. We now ask these things in Christ's holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 2 is to approve the minutes of the November 12th regular Board of Commissioners meeting. Commissioners, let me know if you're ready to move forward.
I've read the minutes, I have no issue.
Okay. Mr. Patterson?
I've read them as well, and I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion that we approve the minutes.
Make a motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Minutes are approved. Okay, public commentary. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, be recognized, and come forward. Mr. Webb.
I haven't been to your meeting. I'm Joe Webb from Dial. I haven't been to your meeting since August. And I want to simply say there is no need for the public to comment. There are no questions answered. And you have effectively run off public comment from this meeting. As to something we were discussing back then, I did a public records request for the striping schedule for striping the roads, which is public safety, and there was no plan, even for the next week, as to striping roads. I know our commissioners have said a lot of times they don't work with day-to-day things. Now, this is a year-to-year thing. I made this first request in January last year, so basically, maybe we can get a striping plan and know how many roads we need to stripe and when they're going to be striped and what the budget cost of that is. I think one of our opportunities is the control of the agenda. I think the whole commission needs to control the agenda. To the comments between the CFO and the chairman, I say we're not fine unless we know we're fine. I agree with Commissioner Johnson. What's the number? You basically can't say we're in good shape if we don't know what the surplus is, and I'm sorry if I'm using that word incorrectly. It's the unallocated amount of money we have. And if risk management is budgeted for $1,620,000 this year and we're at $1,600,000, which seems to be the conversation, how can we get by 2 months and not have any increase? We're right now, 10 months in, we're spending $160,000 a month on average because we're at $1,600,000. So again, this doesn't make sense. We need to understand risk management and the surplus if we're going to actually pass the budget. I recommend we don't pass the budget tonight and we hold it off. But again, I would encourage you basically to answer the public's question and be more forthcoming with information and comparisons. And that means really for yourselves as well as the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to be next? Anyone? Anyone? Public commentary is closed. Item number 3 in new business is a variance request from Michael and Lee Hankemer, I believe is, hopefully I pronounced that right. Is there anyone here that opposes this variance? It's to place a garage 24 feet from the center line and 30 feet from the, I have this mispronounced, 30 feet from the center line and 24 feet from the edge. This is not a county road, it's a Arapahoe walk. Commissioners, got any questions or thoughts on this one? Any problems with it?
Chairman, I looked at the property and I have no issues at all.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Johnson?
Nor do I.
Okay. All right, I ask for a motion that we approve this variance to extend the garage at the front of the carport 24 feet from the edge and 30 feet from the center line. I ask for a motion that we approve this.
Make the motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Variance is approved. Item number 4 is a variance request from Catherine Bullard and Christian Samuel. And this is property located out on Ridgeview Road. And they want to place a shed 30 feet from the edge and 40 feet from the center line of Ridgeview Road, which is a county road. Any thoughts on this one? Anyone here that opposes this variance? Any comments, commissioners? Commissioner Patterson, you have any thoughts on this one, sir?
No, sir, I looked at it again and I think it'll be fine. I have no issues.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson, any thoughts, sir?
No, they're very small sheds and I don't have any issue with them.
All right. I ask the motion, I'll make the motion that we approve this variance. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Variance is approved. Okay, item 5 is our monthly financial report. Ms. Gazaway, someone kill the lights back there, please.
This is the 2019 budget report from January 2019 to October 2019. These are the just the sectors that I use. Again, administration is not just the commissioner's office. It also includes, land development, building maintenance, a variety of other departments. Risk management is at 6.6, and that actually, I was mistaken with Mr. Johnson a while ago. 6.6 actually includes the general liability also, so the health costs are a little bit lower than that. And it is at 102%. Everybody seems to be doing very well. As you can see, the same way. Sorry. give you a little time to look at it. And then this is just a graphical representation of where your expenditures are going. These are the points of interest. We are at 83% into the budget. You can see where the red are the ones that are just a little over. The rec department has generated revenue of $218,395. I mean, from last month, just about everybody has improved.
Robin, you want to explain what the LMIG number is there that we just put up?
Yes, the $732,476. That is what the Georgia Department of Transportation actually gives us to pave roads. And this is actually it's the way that they give it the money to us early sometimes, so it's kind of hard to remember the years. But every year we've gone up just a little bit. They've just given us a little bit more money, and which is great because that gives us the opportunity to pave more roads that way. They also do a safety grant every once in a while that will help with different things.
Does that number include the safety grant?
No, that is just the LMIG.
Okay, so on top of that, what we have is for next year's act on top of that.
63,000, I believe.
60?
63,000.
50?
63.
63,000.
So it'd be a total close to $800,000, correct? For
Yes.
LMIG grant, safety grant, and
And his budget is just a little over, but that is because of the two big paving jobs that we did. And that's already been paid for. I think we paid them completely. I'm not 100%, but I think we have.
So when you put the LMIG money in with that, does that not reduce that as to what the county's actually expended?
Yeah, we could, yes. But that's grant money. You have to keep that completely separate.
And I understand that.
I mean, and
Again, I understand that, but you're saying he's $175,000 over budget. Okay, that's a lot of money to say that someone's over budget. But when actually the county didn't spend that, and I understand you have to keep it separate, but just for kicks and giggles, so could we not have a number that truly represents, because the LMIG money came from the state,
yes.
okay? So we actually haven't spent that much money, but by the looks of it, our public works is over $175,000.
Yeah, well,
And I don't think, I mean, most people may understand that, but if a person didn't understand what LMIG is, it makes it look like public works is $175,000 over, and no one said anything to him about being over. That's just my point. I understand you have to keep it separate. Best thing for me to do is just sit here and not comment on your budget report.
we are 1% under budget overall. And our lost and lost collections are up over 400,000 from last year on what's lost. I'll leave that up for just a minute. We have done really well with that. And again, I try to keep an eye on it every month. I do a report every month to look at that.
Generally speaking, is November and December good months, or with the slosh?
Yeah, it just depends on when people start shopping, for the most part, for the holidays.
So it's usually good.
Yeah.
That's what I would think.
You just gotta remember that you're always a month, the state is a month behind, and then of course with my presentation, it's another month behind. If you notice, you know, it's September collection received in October.
Right.
Because, you know, because of when they come in, because they don't come in until the end of the month, and I've usually done my presentation already.
Okay.
So I'll be a month behind, and they're always a month behind. But yeah, as long as the shopping season goes well, I think we'll exceed that, definitely. That's it.
Any further questions on financial report?
Did we not get a $60,000 grant for striping this year as well?
We did.
So did you know you were 175,000 over? That's what the report says. You need to stop spending money. Or unless I can get a report that says you're not 175,000, you probably don't need to work tomorrow. If you're $175,000 over, you probably don't need to work tomorrow. Either that or we start getting reports that make sense, commissioners, one or the other.
Anything else on that? Okay. Move on to item number 6, and this is a appointment nomination. This is your nomination, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson? This is to fill the term of Mr. Berger, who had to come off the board. And this term would be to complete his term through February of 2022. You got any questions, Mr. Patterson, anything on this?
No, I just felt, Mr. Johnson would probably, if he nominated him, say a few words about him, whatever you'd like to say.
He's a good man, and he likes drinking water. Now, it's very hard, just so everyone knows, I'm sure we've all faced it before. It's very hard to find people to serve on some of these boards because of I will say a couple words as a matter of fact, because as soon as Mark Berger called and informed me that he would be stepping off the board, I want everyone to understand, it is hard to find people to serve on boards because of the exposure. Not only you open up to yourself, but your family or decisions you make. It's getting harder and harder to get people to serve in any capacity on any board because they're scared to death that something's going to slap them in the face. So if we would remember that when we're out here, or maybe thank some of the current board members that are serving throughout the county, by no means don't thank me. I mean, you might thank some of the other commissioners, but it's very hard to find people to serve in these capacities because it used to be something, people, it was an honor to do. Now they're scared they're going to get ran through the ringer. So thank some of these people on some of these other boards because, they really, in my opinion, they take a risk because they make big decisions as well. And just remember that sometimes when casting judgment on some of the decisions these other boards do make. I'm glad to have him step forward and decide to be on it. Hated to lose Mark Berger. I mean, he was a local businessman, very well rounded, but his schedule was in conflict. But thankfully, he seen that it would be a conflict and he would be able to serve his purpose, and he stepped down. So you see him out, thank him for his service as well. That's all I have.
Okay, then I'll ask for a motion that we appoint Mr. Rick Landris to fulfill the term of Mark Berger on the County Water Authority. I'll ask for a motion.
Make the motion.
Okay, I ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor? Appointment is confirmed. I'm sorry.
It was to fill out when did the term end?
2022.
2022.
February 2022.
This is what, Chris? Okay. Where did the back first do?
Anything else? Item number 7, Mr. Larry Thomas, you've got an ISO update for us, sir?
Short and quick. Maybe it might be good So, anyway, for the ISO update tonight, I do want y'all all to know, I know one of our local papers has already run some of the information, but all the hydrants have been serviced. Found some that were out of service, and the ones that was found to be out of service were flagged with ribbon. If you see some of this fire line on these hydrants, you'll know that hydrant's out of service. It will say fire line, do not cross. But the city has been made aware of it. Some of the findings that we had was no water, and that could result in just a contractor going out and working on that water line, but not turning the hydrant itself back on. But that are some things that the cities have been contacted about by email to let them know that that's something that they need to start checking and make sure that they get them corrected. But some damaged hydrants, some that's covered with brush, blocked by fencing. We've took care of three of them at this point right now, that they were actually blocked with a fence, or an electric fence was placed too close to the hydrant. And then one that was, well, there's more than one, probably two or three that's completely missing in wrecks with no injuries where it didn't get reported to us. But the hose and pump testing has already been scheduled for just after the first of the year, where we'll be up front with all this information that we need behind us when they come in to do the next ISO inspection. And as far as the date right now, I don't have it. I've had placed 3 calls to them and hadn't got a call back from them, so it looks like we'll have to email them to get an answer back. So
Okay, so you are hopeful to get them back up here
that's what I'm shooting for by July of next year. Yes.
Have you, now I know you've met with Kaysville, have you met with the other 2 cities, Morganton and Blue Ridge?
No, I haven't. I have spoke with them, you know, by phone or either in person, but not at a council meeting.
Okay. Could you talk with them, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
to the mayors individually and ask? I mean, so you've got McKaysville committed to doing that.
That's right.
Where do we stand with the
Well,
other 2 cities?
the city of Blue Ridge, I was there today, and I've already spoke to her in reference to some of the problems that we might run into, and I heard her say something to one of the others about getting X amount of dollars approved in this next council meeting just for the hydrants. So they're on board with it.
That's what we're talking about, the hydrants right now,
Yes.
not the hoses. So in February at 80, and you said some of them's already been taken care of.
They have.
Do you have any, how long, just in talking to the mayors and so forth, do you anticipate it'll take to fix most of them?
Right.
I mean, I know you got them, you've done a good job, but somebody has, because you categorized them, that some of them take a little bit of work,
Right.
some of them takes, you know, not so much, and
Right.
and some of them a whole lot.
May have to get Patrick out again. He and I went and fixed a couple several years back, so, but other than that, I feel like they're gonna be really quick about trying to get them back into service. We've got some in some areas that are real critical areas too, that need to be addressed. pretty
There's
quick.
a house close by, and they don't have a hydrant, you know?
It ain't good.
That's not good at all. So now, to make it clear, responsibility-wise, it's up to the townships,
Yes,
the 3.
yes.
Will you be following
I'll be
following up on them and making sure that, that we expedite that as much as possible so that the citizens of Fannin County
Right.
not be, you know, hurt?
That's what we're here for. is to
That's
protect.
exactly right.
Exactly. So,
Harm's way. Thank you.
Got any further questions?
No, I would like to clarify, there's been some statements made about the Fannin County Fire Department failing an ISO inspection. And it probably maybe due time now, no one failed, the classification changed because of the status of the infrastructure of the department. Nothing failed.
nothing faith.
So you can clarify that?
Yes.
Okay?
It's a.
Can you say that so everyone can hear it?
risk assessment. Yes, we did not fail. No.
Classification
Our
changed.
classification changed just that mere little bit. just enough to put us back into a six, or actually into the six, that we actually skipped several years ago. In fact, I had a visitor today, I wasn't gonna go into this, but Dr. Ballrath come by, and he asked me how everything was going, and we talked about just that. When we started coming down with these ISO evaluations, and that's the way it's supposed to roll, is downhill. And that one, we jumped from a 7 to a 5, but we just barely had that 5, just barely. But it was a 5, but it just barely took a little bit to throw us back over. But you've got to figure it all in. It ain't just one thing in the department. It's not one thing in the 911 center that does it, or with the water departments, but it takes all three to make that risk assessment possible. So,
Larry, we've been a 5 for how many years?
6.
6.
They usually come every 5 years to do an evaluation.
Right.
And then this next time they done the evaluation, you know, it changed overall back in 2016 when they made the announcements, we're gonna have changes. And one of the changes is when they come in, they don't sit down with you for the 5 days that they used to and go over everything. And that's just like Dr. Walrath said today, wow. What they say about the equipment, I said, that's the same thing that Earl Johnson said. We got all this new equipment, and they didn't even look at it.
Larry, we have on the proposed budget in there for the fire department, proposed for 6 new full-time firefighters. And we talked about that some time ago, about how it would be very helpful throughout the county to have that just as a separate issue as far as response times and getting a known response anytime there's a fire. And that will help, that would help in the county. What other areas, as far as just ISO, would having 6 additional firefighters, what will that do for you?
Oh, as far as their day-to-day job, as far as what they would do, it's gonna help us in, building inspections, not only that way, and I won't call it inspections, none of them are trained to the level of inspector yet, but as far as, doing the, day-to-day operations that our other guys don't have time to do, you've got truck check-offs, maintenance, you know, here and there on pumps, so forth and so on, as far as the equipment for the trucks.
Training?
That too, yes. In fact, and I feel really strong about our training right now. We've got a lot in this year. In fact, I've been working with the numbers just today as far as the training goes, so. But it'll be a plus overall.
So they'll be busy all the time, whether they're fighting fire or not. They'll be inspecting hydrants year round, it'll be a continuous process.
Right.
So it'll help in more ways than just.
That's exactly right. Now, with the hose and truck component testing, I'm gonna go ahead and I've got that scheduled to pay out again next year as far as paying. And it's always better to have an outsider do those things than it is to have somebody from within do it. But you've got their documentation plus our documentation as far as proving it to ISO. You've got a second entity that's actually making a report on the hoses and pumps. And that's 2 critical items, you know, it's lifelines for us.
Okay. So you're moving ahead.
Yes, sir.
You're working on getting that rating back, making some solid concrete things to make that happen. Any more questions?
I'm good, Chairman.
Okay.
And I'm getting, well, I say a lot, I'm getting a lot of offer to him from other counties too. They feel the pain, they say, so.
They gonna send us a check?
Not a check, with some more occurs.
As I understand that some of the other counties have someone who's basically a full-time household
Yes, sir.
person within the fire department.
That's correct. Yep. In fact, Cherokee's sharing theirs with us as we speak, so.
Well, they're a little bigger, but it kind of shows you it's sort of a difficult thing to manage if you're a fire chief and involved with all the other things, and trying to do that as well.
Well, there's a lot of day-to-day stuff that goes on. My schedule changes every day when I walk in, so.
Okay. I don't have anything else unless the commissioners do.
And I do want to say thank you for the update on the paid personnel.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay, item number 8, the 2020 Fannin County financial budget. Commissioners, what other thoughts have you had since our hearing earlier? Anything to add or take away from that?
We went over it pretty well, I feel. What say you, Mr. Johnson?
I mean, I was doing pretty good. I got the balance that I needed, and, the only concerns I have, it really doesn't have to do with the budget, it's just some of the reports we have, the numbers we shared. Like under the new SPOS with the public works. Unless each one of us do a lot of adding and subtracting on numbers that we know are hard numbers. Like off the top of my head, I remember we got, it was somewhere around 60-something thousand for the striping. So I just handwrit that in here in the generated revenue. I don't know if that is that considered in the LMIG money as well? Is that number considered in the LMIG money, or was that different?
That's, should be safety element.
So that was the total?
No, the total should have been added, it should have been 60,000 on top of that, I believe,
Right.
for the striping.
Right.
On top of it.
On
So-
top of the 730?
Yes, so totally close to 800,000.
Okay.
Okay.
And so,
I'm sorry.
so that number's not right. We're really truly not $175,000 over budget public works, I don't think. Do y'all feel that we are?
Yeah, well, as far as the SPOS money, that allocation, I have to go back and look at that. We get,
I mean, but I understand, but do you feel that we're $175,000 over budget, either one of you, in SPOS?
well, just the new SPOS, yeah, because that's been, been very active out there this year.
But when you take the money we're getting from the state,
Yeah.
we're truly not, because it's state money, it's not county money.
Well, I guess if you look at it from just, a general approach to it, we're not. But I guess the reporting on it, as far as what has to be reported as SPOS, I mean, that number is what it is. And that's, again, that's based off of actuals to date. Is there any money, anything that's going to be thrown against that new SPOS number between now and the end of the year, Robin, that'll bring that down?
Not that I'm aware
Okay.
of.
I mean, that figure, 2,895,000, that's based off of, what is that, 58% of the total SPOS is allocated to public works?
Isn't it, yeah, 57.9, I think it is.
And, I mean, that's a real number there, because there's so many roads been paved.
No,
and-
I do budget in that 2.8 is lost money and it's LMIG money that I anticipated we would get.
But it's, I guess the way I look at it, it's the same way with recreation, where, you know, they're over 40, almost 42,000, but we know they generated $218,000 of revenue that really, in your own mind, can throw against that. And the SPOS money, as far as the new part, I mean, that's why we split it out. The general fund for public works is just his budget, his salary, and whatever expenses are out in that department, which he's way under on that. And then the old SPOS, I guess that's pretty well been used up, correct?
Yes.
So now you have to start taking it out of the new SPOS.
Mhm.
And we've just been extremely active in that area. But as far as adding the LMIG money in our own minds against that, you know, we're doing fine with that, would be my 2 cents on it. It's just, I think the way you have to report that is according to accounting procedures.
Well, that's just what Mr. Johnson had asked for. He had asked for them to be split out, the three separate, so if you put the three together, he's not over budget.
So next year, when we won't have the old SPOS at all.
No, we will not.
So you'll only have the 2 columns. You'll have the general fund, public works budget, and the new SPOS
Right.
budget, correct? Okay.
Well, I just, you know, I asked for it to be split out, but, you know, I just came up off the top of my head, and I'm not even here every day, that we got another grant from the state for over $60,000, and it's not even on your report. So,
Mr. Helton asked me just to put the LMIG on there.
oh, okay. All right. But it's generated revenue. It's the same thing. Every time I say something, there is such a great, that's why I'm not gonna vote on the budget tonight, commissioners. I don't trust one number on one sheet of paper sitting in front of me. So you asked me my input, Mr. Patterson. I don't believe in one number that's on here. We're told that we're $175,000 over budget, but truthfully, real money expended by county expenditures were not. But see, you have to decipher all this because of the way our CFO decides to report all these numbers. So since I don't feel comfortable with a single number that you provided me with, I won't be voting on the budget. It'll be up to the 2 of you, if you feel comfortable. If you so feel comfortable.
Okay.
May I ask you, Commissioner Johnson, what can we do?
We can provide real, accurate reports. We can have real, accurate fund balance numbers. We can act like every county around us. We can act like simple businesses. An ice cream business knows how much ice cream they sell, how much they bought, and what's left. It doesn't matter what type of business. This is accounting. It's very serious to me. And if you two feel good with those numbers, a report that shows that our public works is over budget because we've been that busy, I would advise you, Mr. Ratcliffe, not to touch another road. Because I'm not in agreement with you going $175,000 over. I'm not in agreement with it now. I won't be in agreement with it next week. If the other commissioners are, that's fine. But I'm just letting you know publicly, I'm not in favor of you going over $175,000.
Mr. Johnson, do you really believe he's going $175,000?
That's what's on your report from your
But do
CFO.
you believe that?
Do I?
Yes.
I know we didn't because I know the other
That's
numbers.
what I'm saying. It's all in semantics.
It's in reporting from the CFO of the county, the reporting, how everything's
So
reported.
you don't want to do that budget because you don't like her reporting, correct?
I don't like the numbers.
Even though you know that it's right.
Okay, you got a number right here. Did you get this?
I did.
At
I got it right
intermission?
here.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, there's a number of how much money's in the bank, correct?
correct.
Do you know how much money we have to spend?
Spend
Yeah.
for next year.
Spend. No, right now. This is how much money's in the bank. You know what our accounts payable are right now? Then you take that accounts payable, you minus it from this number, and that'll give you a true number. But
Right.
you can't do that right now. So that's why, I'm not gonna be voting on the budget. Until we start getting accurate reports and accurate numbers, not I think so. This came up 6 months ago, with accurate reports, accurate numbers. Yes, we broke all three of those out, but Public Works, I know is not $175,000 over budget. We're printing reports and we're telling us that, well, yeah, we are, but you gotta do this and you gotta do that. Just give us the real numbers. Take the 600,000 plus the 60,000 that I just so happened to remember from striping, okay, because I was happy we got it from the state. You reduce that, and then you tell us the real number, so then we would have real numbers, then I would feel comfortable moving forward. But I don't feel comfortable moving forward, because this number here is great that I got, but I don't know how much we owe. So let's just say a number is 5 million and we owe 3 million, that means the real fund balance is 2 million. But I don't have that, so I can't make that decision, so I'm not moving forward. So I'll leave it up to the remainder of the commission.
Well, thank you for your comments, Mr. Johnson. Commissioner Patterson, do you have anything else you want to add onto that?
How would we proceed, Mr. Chairman, if it wasn't, if we decide not to vote tonight? Set it for a later date?
Well, if we are required to approve our budget by the first meeting in December, if we don't do that tonight, it has to be done by December the 10th. I believe that's the second Tuesday next month.
Mr. Johnson, are you good with this report here? What you saw?
I'm not voting on the budget with the information that I've been provided.
If I have no more questions.
Okay. Well, I'll explain why I'm okay with it, because we have auditors, CPAs that come through and turn this county, the books upside down. It goes from there to the state auditors approve it. Did we get approved last year?
Yes.
And the year before?
Yes.
So our accounting standards are sound. If there's any semantics on these reports that could be done better to enlighten or explain better, I'm all for that if we do it. But as far as having confidence in what we're doing with our numbers, I have no issues with it. Now, I'm ready to vote on it. If Commissioner Johnson is not, then Commissioner Patterson, it's up to you. You want to vote on it tonight, or do you want to vote to delay it till the next meeting?
I feel fairly comfortable with it. Probably more than fairly comfortable with it. But I think with the type of budget that we have, the importance of it, I feel like we need to wait. I won't be for it as well at this time.
Okay, then what we will do we need to make a motion to move it to the next meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I feel like we need to have unanimous on this budget. It's that important.
Okay. All right.
Just keep in mind, I still may not be in favor of them if you want unanimous. So it just depends on what type of.
I feel at this time that we would like to have a unanimous.
Oh, yeah.
And so we'll see what we can do to have that.
Right.
And then we'll all discuss it again.
Well, we have to approve it by the next meeting. So it's good we had that time to, I mean, that's part of the reason that there were any issues to have it tonight, so we had the next meeting to fall back on. So I'll ask for a motion that we move the vote on the 2020 budget to the next meeting, which would be December the 10th. We do have the option if there was a comfort level or if you commissioners wanted to vote prior to that, a special call meeting. But as it stands now, what I'll do is ask for a motion that we move that vote to December 10th. That's correct, isn't it? Second Tuesday, December 10th?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll ask for a motion that we move to then.
Make the motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Okay, we'll move it to December 10th.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to speak a moment, if you don't
Have
mind.
at it.
We need to try to avoid this at all costs. To have something that Mr. Johnson feels acceptable, that he would feel good about. I don't know quite how we need to do that, but we need to work to that end, I feel like. That we all can feel comfortable with. It's the citizens of the Fannin County that put us here, and we need to try to do that in some way. Do we have any suggestions?
Well, you brought it up, you give me the suggestion, sir.
I believe we ought to have some paperwork that Mr. Johnson can look over beforehand and have questions before we meet, so we can avoid any delay or any problems of that nature from Mr. Johnson having concerns. Can you do that?
Mr. Patterson, I just want accurate numbers. As long as I have those, I'm fine if I have accurate numbers.
Well,
And I know, I don't want anyone leaving here thinking I'm trying to be a, you know, this has been an ongoing thing with our financials for quite a while now. So it's not like this is just some new thing to me. I don't like abouts, I don't like I think so's, I like real numbers. Because I deal with them every day in my life, and, you know, I just expect that here in the government. I expect it. I expect it here more than I do at home or my company. And it's going to be everything I can possibly do to get it to that point here. Even if it means delaying this for 2 more weeks, at some point we've got to stop having abouts, and I think so's, have the real numbers that not only the 3 of us, but anyone else can look at and truly understand, and I think it will take care of a lot of our issues. Because not all of us are accountants. I'm not an accountant. I pay someone to do my accounting as well. But I do know numbers, and I remember numbers. But I shouldn't have to remember a $60,000 grant that Mr. Ratcliffe went out and got. I shouldn't have to remember that and it be on a report, because actually that has generated revenue as well through his department because it came from the state. And once we have that, Mr. Patterson, Mr. L, I'll be fine. Once we have true and accurate reporting, I'll be fine.
Anything else on that? Anything else, Commissioner?
No, sir.
All right. Item number 9. I understand that I have to legally call that employee deferred compensation. and
That is
not-
correct,
And not a
sir.
Christmas bonus.
That is most correct,
Cannot
sir.
use that word bonus.
That is
Okay.
correct, sir.
But it's been traditional the last few years that we offer to all full-time employees for the county $100, and part-time employees that are furnished, the list of them that are furnished to us from the department heads, $50. And this would be for all county officials except elected officials. So, you have any thoughts on that, questions, Commissioner? We've done this
No,
number
I'm
of
good
years.
with that.
Anything?
It's fine.
Okay. All right, then I'll make a motion that we provide deferred compensation, which happens to be around Christmas time. $100 for full-time county employees and $50 for part-time. I'll make that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Okay, it's approved. All right, do we need executive session?
I did not.
No.
Then I'll ask for motion for adjournment.
Make a motion.
Okay. I'll second it, all in favor? Thank you for coming.